is, I would show it a data set that would sort of like, verse is just has an entire chain. But yeah, it's just banks don't want to take risk. And then grants are quite competitive. There are a lot of grants, but they're competitive, and expect some level of compliance. So I mean, this is some stats here. Tech startups, took the entire green, and then most of the guys are
Recorded.
we've looked at the obvious part, capital is broken, and then we looked at the non-obvious part. There is capital, but there are no sort of like businesses to take it in, right? Hold on, nothing is. Let me go back. Is that we're not going to look outwards too much. Here we're going to touch on what parts probably have an understanding of how the capital ecosystem works outside of you, because it allows you to have sort of like a balanced perspective on understanding how capital works and how to get ready for capital. But it starts inwards. You can't give what you don't have. You cannot walk up to an investor and say, hey, throw in money into my business when you don't understand structure, you don't understand compliance, you don't. And the key word here is understanding, because it's one thing to say compliant, but it's another thing to understand what being compliant is, especially from a perspective of an investor, right? So we're going to look inwards today. That's the long and short of the story. So so let's talk about structure. Just understanding what internal structure look like when we say capital loves or when Nauna says something like there is no structure to taking the capital that is available. And just up on what Nauna also said, meeting earlier today with a friend, he flew in from from Germany. I had two other founders from Abidjan, and we had a conversation around just the number of funds that are out there for Africanness. And we reiterated two things. Number one, the SMEs are even aware that the funds are probably not communicated. There is the biggest problem, and I've experienced that because I also did some training with GIZ back in the day. I was a facilitator we did a few entrepreneur cycle where we're training SMEs and returnees basically on internal structure, getting your finances right, compliance and stuff. So even they confirm the same, that the biggest problem also is that the SMEs themselves do not know and understand what that structure would typically look like. So I would hint a bit about that. Obviously, this is going to be a quick one. In our interactive session, I would take a lot more questions, right? Non-obvious problems, that we do not take, into cognizance. This is internal problems. The lack of structure. There are no clear rules. There are no systems. We've seen this a lot. And I'm saying we've seen this a lot because we've spoken to over 150 just between January and now. We've had a lot of like investment readiness call, compliance calls. Literally our calendar is booked out, I think, up to May or thereabout, May or June. It's further booked down. So we're having this conversation every time. We're seeing these things So whatever I'm saying here, one-man business, one person makes all the decisions, top to bottom. There's no leadership beyond the main leader, right? That's a key man risk. It signals, very, very good. It doesn't signal the right thing for investors. Compliance gaps, the annual certificates, the annual returns, no registered business, things that come with compliance, taxes, getting the licensing you need for even what you're doing. You're trying to raise and say, I haven't gotten any type of license for what I'm trying to do. The other one is weekly. The founder is a bottleneck, no delegation, there's no second in command. So that's an end with you. And for me, weak leadership also transcends understanding how to build relationships, stakeholders. So stakeholders are your investors, stakeholders are the government, stakeholders are your employees, are all stakeholders within your company. So the leadership is not intentionally managing networks or work with. I see this from some like the African business heroes. Start founder, you should know your numbers. If you watch Lions Den or the Shark Tank, those founders want to everything, which you don't typically find proper, within a lot of organizations. And this is very, very important.
This meeting is being
Very important, as an output to internal controls. Who handles what, who approves what, the principle of segregation. No one person's handle internal control, and then even reporting itself is part of internal control. It's within the internal control. We call it the COSO framework. So let's now take a look at structure. What does structure look like? What structure doesn't look like? You keep structure, but what does that mean, especially for an SME, right? Structure means a very, 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 very clear reporting framework. You have not just the financial reporting, but just general reporting. There's API report, and then your profit and loss balance of that flow. I would typically have your financial projection trickle back to your monthly or your quarterly targets, and then when your MPR, maybe quarterly performance, you can compare what you plan to do as a business and what you behave, we're dropping the ball, or you need to, move faster with trying to achieve our goals, or did we set our goals too high? These are conversations you have, even as 2-3-man thing. These are things that can still be. We've seen this done before, so we're not making it up. Controls is very important. Who's spending, who signs off on spending, who else has access to your spending records, what are the rules for your banking, how do you describe certain transactions, like just what your company and operate, make sure that checks and balances, and whatever comes out as a report in, and is what's the word, redundancies, and can always be validated over and over, because one thing to create reports, but with internal controls means, those reports can be manipulated and, investors can pick that up easily. Then the next thing is having a board, even an advisory board counts, someone outside founders who sort of provides oversight and accountability. And for me, I would go further with having a board. So having a board goes beyond, I would say, just setting up in your board. It is using your board as a strategic tool, even pulling investment, and get access to stuff, right? So if I'm opening something in the telecom, somebody in my board that has influence in that space, I can, make my getting license or raising people chase you with money, right? So your board, not just even having a board for oversight and and good corporate governance, is also a tool to raising capital. Grace, I hope you can hear me. I'm already giving you tips at this point. General compliance, so tax registration, annual returns, proper structure. I used to use business name today. Things properly and have all your compliance together. That's what structure also looks. And then I think this one has been just said so many times. I just had to still throw it in there. Finances, business money and personal money. We even had something we put on our social media, recently on Kai Finance, where we say we have some chimpanzees, and we're like, hey, when you tell founders to separate their personal money from, and this is such a turnoff for investors, because I basic sort of like or out, the least you can do is get just have everything running through that, right? And it's been SMEs on the continent have to figure out structure. What else are we, looking at? And I would try to talk within the scope of this document, but I probably, go further to add personal tips here and there. So now that you have structure, you have your house in order, you can apply. You can talk to investors and then approach banks. And now you have financial management. You can even automate the way that it gives updates on different grant opportunities. The grants have never been the problem. Somewhat can be a problem, and I'm going to talk that a little bit in a little bit. But the biggest problem we see is just, the structure part of once that structure part is out, and we're telling you this thing because we've actually been in conversations, and we're given the assurance that structured the data, but we start
This meeting ended.
Sometimes you can leave somebody quitting your business and don't anymore because they can competence that now positions you to raise capital. So with capital game, you have to be very strategic, right? So the next one is have a complete and clean documentation, right? If I get into your data room, you're trying to raise money, have an expert, and have a third eye come and work with your data together. A lot of the rounds, even in the tech company in the US and and all advisors working with them on the back end, you probably do not know that African businesses just avoid working with people that are maybe in a certain space, that would make your life easier and make it easier for you to close rounds. What I know and the interact daily literally puts me in a position to close the business that I see alignment with the investors I'm speaking with, more than if they had to do that themselves. So I would always say, work with an advisor, a finance consultant that knows this thing, not just someone that says it, but that knows it, and they've shown traction and been able to demonstrate their expertise. You work with them to help you with documenting, because documentation is not just having documents, it's also having documents that align with what the investors are looking out for. You could actually continue to update those different documents for different investors as conversations are going on. So it's not a one-way thing. The next most important thing, very important, is scaling your business. So identify your business and have strategies, not just on paper, implementations in your daily operations, to manage that. If your biggest risk is, a key man risk, for example, where maybe you are approving and also to take care of that risk, so that when you talk to an investor, you say, hey, I know you're going to talk about this, or this is the risk, or these are the risks, but these are the things I have already put in work so far, right? To help us manage that risk. And stay compliant, obviously. The next one is, research grants. And when you research grants, talking about grants now, make sure that you research grants that perfectly align with what you do. With grants, is always a hit or miss, in the sense that if you have 1,000 people, will be tons of people applying for those grants. If you were on the other side picking for the grants, you want to as quickly as possible. That is not aligned with your grant, you don't even want to look at it. So I'm doing grants for maybe art and culture, and you run a finance company. I don't even want to look at your application, no matter how good it is, right? So one of the easiest way, or the fastest way to make sure you close grants is basically making sure you specify you that will at least guide you to figure out the grants and give you a tip on something you can use for life. What I do in critical areas in my life, and I make sure I have friends that in a medical space, you should have a doctor friend, right? You should have a friend that is a finance guru. If you're an entrepreneur, these are things you should have a friend that works in the media, and they can always for everything. Then what I'm pointing to when I say something like, hey, make sure you work with a friend, doesn't always pay all the time. The next one is have a clear roadmap for investor exit. So I'm coming to your business and you say, hey, throw in 100,000, a 10 million, $80 million, whatever you're asking for, and then you're gonna get so amount of money, and you don't have a clear framework of how I'm gonna exit. If I want to exit, means I want to take my money out of the business. If the government puts out like an announcement on treasury bills, the TPs, process when you can liquidate, how you can liquidate, and stuff like that. If the investors don't have a clear line of sight on how If somebody's talking, can you please mute yourself? Yeah, thank you. So as I was saying, government tells people, even with how secure those investments are, when and how they can pull out their funds and and liquidate their investment. Please always make sure that that is clearly communicated with potential in day one. It just shows you understand the game from their perspective, and that everybody don't want a business forever. Some people want to come, stay to 3, 4, 5 years and exit, right? But that's be like a structure that accommodates exits and stuff like that. But beyond exits, it also demonstrates actual growth, back traction. So we push this thing without you, get here with you, this is clear and get to, and you can always use comparatives of that businesses within the industry that signals that whatever you're seeing, stuff. Then SOPs for your this one is very critical. In fact, I've seen somebody buy these businesses because somebody's business because they had like a play to how they operate within that country that we're buying into. So they didn't give a damn about the profitability, the margins, the SOPs were country for this to get out there and that company. So be anything that becomes reason somebody wants to do business with you or invest in your business, So always just make sure you check all the boxes within your operations and your business. I talked about unit economics earlier. Unit basically means you deduce your entire financials into units, right? So if I sold bread, what is the cost of it for the buy bread, cooking the bread if I make it, what is the operational cost, on that unit. So if unit, and I bought it for, let's say, $6 left. My operation $2. So I have $4 left, and then maybe compliance is another $2. I have $2 left. So in your business, is that you know what you're doing. So know your unit economics is very important. The pitch always and pitch to everyone. And let me explain this. It sounds a certain way. It sounds maybe nice, but it's real, right? Because I've seen people. I've been in conversations where I've seen investment happening, in very abnormal, casual places, and they wire the money. They don't look at sheets, no nothing, right? I've had friends that have raised money like that for huge projects. I'm telling you, huge amounts of money, right? So as an SME founder, as a business owner, if you ever want to raise capital even for the line, those conversations must start now and must start to everyone. And I say everyone because sometimes the person you think you would raise from would not even be the right one. It could be his friend sitting beside him that is interested in what you're doing, right? So do not hold back with just talking about your business and what you potentially could have done if it was in your space, right? And I put together a nice gift for you guys. So one of the things I talked about with my team is, hey, what do we do for people that are part of this? And we decided a playbook together that just wraps some of these things that we've talked about together, and just gives you guys different approaches to raising different kinds of capital. So probably have a playbook for grants, we have a playbook for equity, we have a playbook for debt, and it just gives insight into maybe what investors would typically look out for, the nuances of raising capital, and just really positions you to have like a guide that you can go back to without talking to anyone, or you're alone, and figure out where you're getting it wrong, or can get it right. And some of these playbooks are actually, the playbooks are actually like real situations that we've seen. It might not cross every scenario, but there's something that you could pick from there and just positions you to raise some capital. So the key takeaways for today is, in as much as there are the external challenges, which is, sometimes the VCs, for example, and how it's dead. But somebody also hinted that the VCs themselves did too much with making so much noise that it started to feel like VC capital was the only capital in Africa, you know. So that's one of the biggest challenges, with pensions and, some of these funds that will go to private equity that could be set up for SMEs. But the truth is, there are a lot of funds out here for SMEs. There are a lot of them. As part of some webinar recently, as a European, organization that put it together, and everybody's speaking one language. How do we get SMEs to be structured, even all the way to Canada? We get these SMEs to be structured to then take in these funds that we have here, And it's interesting because the Canadians have been very, very, deliberate with how they've approached it. They've worked with consultants to, help these businesses. In Nigeria, I've seen similar things happening with the Entrepreneur Development Center and a lot of accelerator programs that are very, very much localized and aligned. Some SMEs, you have, foundations here and there that do that in Nigeria. I'm sure you have a couple of that here in Kenya and East Africa. But the biggest problem we all agree on is, internal structure, right? So problem number one, stop pointing fingers at everyone. You need to look inwards and, learn an investment or capital raising sort of ecosystem and really understand it, right? Don't be entitled. Nobody owes you, So look inwards, fix your structure first. I've talked about reporting, having about shit cash flow with a serious business person. Weak corporate governance is also a red flag a lot of times, not all the times, but I mean, it's a good one to have because it just signals you're very serious with your business. Right? I'd say even if it's an advisory board member, get somebody, but not just a random advisory person. Get somebody that is seasoned, that is exposed, and having someone on your board from a reputation and network perspective will open doors for you. Compliance gaps, just get your taxes done, make sure that there are contracts for everything. If you're trying to sign on those, that will probably, give you sort of like off-takers, for example, for your new project, make sure there's the proper documentation and, signatures, pen to paper, and then like officialize them, let them be and all, no set approvals, you're not separating that from your personal, transactions. And then go get capital. I'll throw in something here, just very, very. I think the other big picture that I hint from a personal perspective of observing a lot of the SMEs we've spoken to this year is also not just understanding it from the investor side of thing, right? I think a lot of SMEs just think, hey, I have a business and I'm certainly entitled to investment, So think of yourself as an investor. Let's say you have $100,000 today, right? There's so many options. You have stock markets, you have the American stock market, if you're in Nigeria, you have Nigerian stock market that is performing quite well recently. You have these real estate people chasing you down to buy properties, right? that is like a really crazy one. You have the real estate people chasing you down to buy properties. You have normally once you have money, you have more problems. So you probably have your children wanting more. So what that means, every dollar you have, you're going to take it very seriously. You're not just going to throw money away. Because something looks nice or something, right? And that's what I think a lot of SMEs miss. Like raising money is a very serious business, right? Because even the American government, if you're going to print money, it already means inflation and it means higher interest rates and stuff. So every dime is very serious. There's no free money even in Freetown, right? Once you kind of understand that perspective from an investor, what it does is that you take fundraising very seriously, right? In terms of documentation, strategy, putting your books together, networking, documenting people that you network with, have a spreadsheet, you told them about this, what they're interested in, and you keep the conversation going. Even on Skype finance, bringing you investment and investors. This is our life, interacting with investors. Apparently, trust, we are sort of like, also investing in the pipeline. But we have to engage these guys every day. Sometimes, it's hey, I'm available for 3 weeks, meeting 3 weeks, stuff like that. But we're building the relationships, we're spending a lot on business development. We're taking some of these people out and buying them a cup of coffee, sometimes buy them a bottle of wine. It's an entire thing, right? So you also have to become very intentional, attend conferences and put yourself out there, and as I say, pitch yourself all the time. So what do you do now? As I said, we have freebies, so you can go to our social media pages, Kai Finance, send us the KIA 101, and we would from there and send you a playbook, right? So that you can move into fixing your business. So I'm going to close with this. Capital isn't the problem. Lack of structure is sort of like the basis of this entire conversation. So blaming the government, the banks, the economy. Let's build businesses that are fundable, because we did the work. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Ubong Ita, once again, and I'm hoping I can take on quite, just different engagements here. Thank you.
Amazing presentation, very nice and to the point. So just like Mr. Ita said, let's have any questions, anything that you would like clarification on. You could just put up your hand, or you can unmute, whatever is more comfortable. Do we have any questions? Or was Mr. Ita that clear? Okay, I'm seeing, I don't know what to call you, WG, AM, Ken,
No,
David.
It's David. It's for the account. On behalf of the business, maybe by way of introduction, I'm David Karevi. I lead revenue at Thai Finance. It's a good session that our CEO has done today. To be honest, pleasure to hear him talk to SMEs, because these are some of the realities that he himself has lived over the years. So my question is this, Mr. Ita, I'm asking for the founders in the room, for the business owners. Is it just grants that Kai Finance can help with, or are there other funding opportunities available?
Is it just what? I didn't get the question.
Grants, non-dilutive capital.
No. So I mean, one of the things I hinted here is that as a business, in as much as you're looking for, talked about, grants and all that. With the capital game, I always keep it broad, right? Keep it look at every opportunities, look at these getting us in, and maybe one of the things I recommend as an of that is that there should be somebody in every company that is very dedicated to capital, right? Because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, right? So for me, it's always going to be a combination of dilutive and non-dilutive type funding, right? Where you're looking at equity, you're looking at debt, and all of these have their benefits and their downsides, right? Grants are very hard to get, take longer to come in. There's always hard conditions that must be met to get that sorted. Equity, you're bringing in people to be part of your business, so relationships have to be built. It's literally a marriage. Debt, the risk of not paying your interest and losing whatever you collateralized if you did. So they all have their pros and their cons. And also as a business, you always should be looking out for how you can position to access all of them if possible. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so I see a thumbs up. Looks like his question has been answered. I am seeing another question that's been pasted in the chat. Lulu says, sorry, I joined a bit late. How do you handle investors who want equity forever, even if it's a small percentage?
Um, I would say two things, very practical. Number one is, I mean, this is where your lawyer would come in to structure these deals for you, where you have, certain clauses that allows you maybe buyback if certain conditions play out. So you have your buyback clause, right? Embedded somewhere. And then, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong if the person is bringing value for forever. I mean, that could always be a deal if that makes sense. But yeah, there's always like a buyback clause that you can put in, or just kind of have an agreement that allows, certain things happen if certain events happen, right? Or maybe a new round of investment, first right of, refusal and all those kind of clauses that will be thrown in there by your lawyer. I hope you got that, Lulu. Yeah.
Lulu, I hope that answers your question. Super, thank you so much. Okay, I love the response. We also have Grace's hand raised. Grace, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, thank you so much. My question is also directed on the research grant or feasibility study. My business where I am, I felt like, okay, let me expand to West Africa, whereby I've seen infrastructure moving and then in a bigger way. So I was so interested in saying, okay, maybe since we are not recognized much in our own country, maybe it's because we are women. There were lots of questions that we were raising on our own because of the fund issue, and then also looking at the way the company has been structured. We have expertise in women expertise in terms of manufacturing, and men that are part of us who does production, and even ourselves we do production. So we said, let's go out and do a feasibility study. Each and everything that we've done it on our own. And then we realized it later that there are some funds that are available for feasibility study, which we never get also. So I wanted to find out if we still want to pursue venturing into West Africa, how can we be assisted? Because our interest is much of we have seen that most countries doesn't have a cement plant. Some do have, but the material, they're still getting it out from other countries. So we were coming with new technology to do cement. We were coming with new things altogether, whether be in construction of houses. We were coming with new technology to build houses. So how can we be assisted when it comes to feasibility study grants?
So, this question, this thing you just threw in here is a 30 minutes to an hour conversation, because I'm going to have to ask you a lot of questions, really understand what is going on back end,
Okay.
It's not something I think is sort of like generic. I can't take that and put and paste it everywhere, because we need to know what the angles are, what is proprietary, you know what I'm saying? I understand what funds they are set up for those kind of things, and then we can advise and say, okay, these are the funds. But usually if you have alignment with what those funds are looking out for, there's really no reason they won't want to work with you, right?
Okay.
Or at least contact you. So as I said, there's usually alignment between what the fund is looking for or looking to do, really understanding that, and what you're writing in your pitch or your proposal to those funds or your grant applications, right? So it's a layered question. I hope maybe something we can have a talk after this, and just really understand what your limitations and what the problem really is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So you can reach out to the Business Week Africa people, and I'm sure they will be happy to share our contact with you.
You
Okay.
also have their contacts on WhatsApp and on, contact on the chat and their website, placed in the chat. So you can definitely reach out to them and their email. So you can definitely reach out to them directly. But if you would like to reach out to them through us, that is also fine, whatever is comfortable with you. Great. Are there any other questions? I haven't seen any hands up and I haven't seen any more questions in the chat. Is there anyone else with any other question? Miss says, thank you so much. Appreciated. Love the feedback. Anyone else before we close?
Okay, so let me chip in here. So this is like why another problem why SMEs don't raise capital. We African SMEs don't talk. We don't know how to put ourselves out there. There's no way I'm on a webinar like this where I have LPs and all these VCs. I am so going to talk. I met Lulu here now. I met Grace. I met Salma. I bump into them on the road and they say, "Hey, it's Salma. I can remember, right? This is where you start. This is where you start to build relationships. There are certain people that I know here that I probably will not mention their names, but they have access to funds. They're not just listening as here, as there are also people that could pull in investments and all that to businesses. I've seen a few of them here that I invited. So if you are not talking, you limit your ability to raise capital by instantly. So guys, please advise, learn to talk, learn to sell out there, and just continue to be proud of your business, be proud of your own ideas and your vision, and don't hold back. I will please back to you. I just needed to chip that in.
I would like to ask you to say that again. This is what we've been trying to say. This is the reason why we set up these webinars, right?
This meeting is being recorded.
You have been enjoying the webinars and getting little tidbits of information here and there. We also have a little bit of launch in finance, which will touch on some of the topics that have been covered here today. We also cover marketing, legal, and they are going to start on the 11th. See the link. Just you have to see short courses if you'd like to register for them. The WhatsApp group is where we share most of our information regarding anything that we have coming up, every single webinar that we have, which is every week, every event that we host, which is every all the information regarding these events and the things that we offer usually pasted in the WhatsApp group. And aside from that, the WhatsApp group is also a community of entrepreneurs. We have 1,000 entrepreneurs in one WhatsApp group. We're currently building a second one. That's the one the link is to, and essentially you have access. It serves as a platform for your own opportunities, or advertise your own business, and also network and talk to and interact with other entrepreneurs. So feel free to join the group. That is also where we're going to be sharing the slides for today. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So link to the WhatsApp group and the short courses if you're interested in something more in depth than this, essentially. Thank you so much for the reactions, guys. I'm very urging. Yeah, without much further ado, bid you guys good night. Unless there's something someone would like to say, now's your chance, but if not, free to leave the session. And yeah, have your great evening.
Thank you so much for giving us opportunity. I'm taking it up without even being asked to say. But thank you. It's an eye-opener on our side to say it is possible for us to receive funds or be funded, provided we house are clean. So on my side, my house was always, my one was, what is it that we are missing in between the links? That we are not getting it or getting there. That was our main challenge that we always face most of the time. We have approached lots of entities, lot of government entities. At the end of the day, we were just hitting the wall. So sometimes we end up saying, maybe because on my I'm in a sector where I'm the only woman, whereby cement people are not familiar with, maybe they don't understand exactly how the concept must be. Maybe they don't how to fund a cement. I'm not sure. So I always go to and fro. The aspects of the day, the money I was looking for at that particular time, they were saying, no, Grace, you must understand their mandate, because they were looking for anyone who has to go. The time I applied, it was not even, only now they come down to say we are allowed to go to $5 million US. So such kind of things we to explore and be told the approach, what we need to do to make sure that we are funded or we attract investors. So also talking about investors, like what Lulu was saying, was even laughing about it, because you will find the investors come to a company and say they need percent of your business. Some will say I need 50%, whereby you have that a majority anymore. End up saying, okay, it's fine, you can take it. Last question we find ourselves in, it's overwhelming. Maybe I must just let go of a stake and give it to them. But at the end of the day, they come back, this part of doing it. So first, sometimes we find out as to discuss. Keeping quiet, we won't be assisted. Keeping quiet is not keeping quiet, is the silent of them that we endure when we are in this journey. Thank you so much.
So much, Grace, for those very, very insightful words. And my heart goes out to you. And I definitely understand that everyone, everyone goes through a certain stage where they're facing these challenges. And that's why we, do webinars so that we can try and help wherever we can. We also post polls, by the way, in our WhatsApp group, what sort of topics you'd like to find covered.